Okay, so here we go again, part two now. We had left off with data and information, and we just started to talk about memory. And I wanted to mention memory is such an important thing as it processes your applications and programs so that you can get the output you're looking for based on your input, right? And so in this, memory is very important. Again, not just to run your system, but even from a security perspective. A buffer area is where a lot of this information gets stored as you reach out to applications and back. So the buffer is an area of memory that stores information sent to you by an application. So you reach out to the Walmart website, it is going to then reach back to you, and you're engaging each other in this sort of buffer part of the memory. And so it's a good idea of how we're exchanging the inputs and outputs. So a buffer overflow is an anomaly where your program, while writing data to the buffer, it overruns this buffer boundary that's predefined. And it goes into an adjacent memory location. So you've got multiple memory locations inside your computing device, which is working together to manage your inputs, your outputs, your applications, your operating system, and other things all at the same time. What will happen is a hacker will send too much information. If a hacker gets online with you and they get into your session, it's called, with this Walmart store, for example, he or she, the hacker, can flood your memory with too much information, and there's overflow, and the computer gets confused. Once that happens, a hacker can actually send other programs or instructions that your computer will just follow, right? So you want to be very careful of that. So we're talking about great capability, but realize, like Spider-Man said, with great response. With great power comes great responsibility. Okay? So we use that to understand data and information. Now, we also have a hard disk and solid state drive. So hard disk and a solid state drive are basically the same things, but they have different methods of operating. So looking at this slide, you may think that they're trying to state that these are two different devices, and they are different, but they frankly have the same purpose, is what I'm saying. So hard disks and SSDs, which is short for solid state drive, they store software and all types of user files, right? A file basically is a named collection of stored data. We have lots of files on our computer, a named collection of stored data. And so a hard disk is a storage device with one or more inflexible circular platters using magnetic particles to store information, which can be, those magnetic particles, the instructions for the data that we've saved, right? That's on a hard disk. And on SSD, or solid state drive, it's going to actually use a flash memory to store the information and data. We've all used flash memory when we use a flash drive, right? It has no moving parts. It makes it more durable and easy to use. So different types of long-term storage devices. Okay. We just mentioned, right, the same thing I just talked about, USB flash drives. A memory card is also very similar, the same type of data. Now, we have optical discs, which are written and read by lasers. So CDs, DVDs, these are all optical discs, right? And then we also want to touch on, we'll get into more detail later in the course, cloud storage. Cloud storage is an internet service that provides this remote storage outside of your hard disks or your flash drives or your SSD drives. It's storage away from you, right? I would like to offer that you can use these devices, especially cloud, for backups. You can use optical disks for backups, which you can write to. And this is a way to duplicate your content, right? And I would advise always keep a backup of your data to save them in case the data is destroyed, like in a fire or a hurricane with water damage or a tornado. Even if your data is locked up by ransomware, say you suffer a ransomware attack, you know the best way to get around a ransomware attack is not to pay it, it's to reformat your hard drive and take your duplicated data from the cloud and download it again so that you're restored. Best way to go about it, right? Also, I'd like to add that for optical discs, most computers these days really don't come with an optical disc drive. It's a special order these days. So I hope you'll learn if you're out shopping for a website using some of these concepts and they don't have an optical drive any longer. Okay. Now we want to consider how our data is handled, right? We want to consider the policies either at work or at home that we apply. I just mentioned using cloud storage as a backup to defend ourselves against an attack of, say, ransomware, right? So where are we going to store the data? Locally on our hard drive, locally on an external drive, which is good too, right? Take an external drive, plug it in. It'll usually copy all the data. Then you unplug it and you have a backup. It's local. Or the cloud, as we talked about, right? How are we going to label our backups or our data? Have a file plan. And what about retention, especially at work? How long, for legal purposes, are we going to retain our data? These are just some of the considerations. There are others, but these are some important ones on how to handle our data, right? Then we also want to consider how we're going to dispose of these media for handling our data, right? Disposal methods, right? Do we want to burn them, right? Or do we shred, right? When disposing of a hard drive, for example, you consider a cross-cut shredder. We could pulp, it's called pulping, or pulp our drives, and that's using chemicals. Or pulverizing is a term that breaks the data down into particles, right? Degaussing is a term we use that removes the magnetic field so all the data is lost. Remember, hard drives use a magnetic field to run programs, or write the data. We can degauss it. We can also purge or permanently erase and wipe, which is securely wiping all data, which is different than reformatting. If we reformat, that's a method that's not recommended. Formatting, reformatting, or deleting the data from storage memory, such as a hard drive, it really doesn't ensure that the actual removal of the data, but instead only removes the pointers to the location of the data where the data resides. It only removes those pointers. So not a good way reformatting to get rid of your data. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about then is the web. We move now to the web. And the www, or the web, right? It's a global library of electronic documents or web pages, which is different than the internet, the internet is this collection of computer networks around the world that is reaching into these libraries, these webs, these libraries, these folders. So the www, the World Wide Web, is one of the widely used services in the internet. But we're using this internet, or this exchange of networks, this connection of networks, to do other things besides looking at other files or folders, electronic documents. We're using it to do email, we're using it to instant message, we're using it to use VoIP over file transfer protocol, or known as FTP, right? So again, the website is a collection of related web pages, which is usually then stored on a web server. We talked about a web server in the last discussion, right? Web server is a computer that delivers these requested web pages to your computer. So your computer you make input to your computer, you click on the link, and it processes, and it goes out and it touches this web server application, which then says, oh, they want this file, and it sends that file back to you as input. Your computer processes it and gets displayed as output on your screen, right? which brings us to the browser. The browser that we're using to do this is just software that enables users with an internet connection, usually by an internet service provider or ISP, to access and view web pages, these files known as the web or the WWD, using the internet, which is this collection of networks. Is kind of how the way it is put together, right? Here is on this slide just another look at the same thing. The internet is the largest computer network, connecting millions of computers. And again, the web or WWD or World Wide Web are these files that can be found by reaching out to these various networks. Okay? Important distinction. So this next slide really has a series of definitions that are useful for this course, right? And just note, here's a fine-tuned note, not one that's really essential here, is that websites don't have to be hosted on web servers, right? They can also be hosted, so we talked about websites and reaching out to a server. But notice that a website can also be hosted on a desktop or laptop. In fact, your desktop or laptop, if powerful enough, can act as a server, I mentioned earlier, right? So this might be a useful feature for future web developers in the class, right? If you want to tinker around with creating websites, you can do that on your laptop, and it can, in essence, act as a server. Just know that by hosting on your own personal device, you incur risks as you open up your device to hackers that may want to attack the site you've created. So just know that. If you play around, be careful. I've already mentioned quickly a note about the browser, right? Here's the definition. Some common examples are Windows, maybe Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Microsoft Exchange. Mac likes to use Safari or Google Chrome. These are some browsers that enable you to get access to the internet. You also can use a search engine, which is software that goes out and finds these file folders for you, these websites, web pages, this data that you want to collect based on reaching out to the various networks or systems of computers that form the internet, right? Just merging terms together. The nice thing about the web too is it also is a capability for online social networking, right? It's examples of this would include Twitter, Facebook. Recently, I was exposed to TikTok. Just if you go to TikTok, note this, the U.S. government has determined TikTok to be harmful since it's hosted by China. Not my note, a note of the U.S. government, so just be aware of that. But online social networking, very powerful capability in the internet. Okay. So we want to protect against malware. There are people out there trying to attack this. If you host your own web page or you're using an application like TikTok that we have a warning about, realize there are APT, for example, Advanced Persistent Threat. Not required from this class, but just interesting. Feel free to Google it, look it up, Advanced Persistent Threats. These are nation states that, like Russia sometimes, like China or others, that continue to attack our network or to plant logic bombs or other sort of malware to deny service. If I want to reach out to a Walmart website, they have an interest in denying that service in mass to impact. So I'm not picking on any particular thing, but there are APTs, nation states, that do this, that can fund it and have the technical skills to do that. So we can do things to avoid it. We can, you want to review the book for more detailed discussion, and we'll pick up with some of the security in the next